This is Javier on the day of his high school graduation. His family is beaming with joy. His parents are so proud of him, and he is feeling very proud of himself for reaching this point in his life. This was not an easy road for him, though, and he would have never thought he'd be here right now. Let's go back 13 years ago, when Javier was only 5 years old, and his family left their home in El Salvador to begin their long journey to reach the United States. Because they moved when he was very young, he missed the most crucial years of his education. He never went to preschool, and because of this, he didn't develop the skills needed in order to begin school. When they got to the U.S., he was almost 6 years old and going into kindergarten. Since they arrived to the U.S. halfway through the school year, he was behind already, not to mention that he didn't even know how to speak English. So those first 6 months of school in America were very difficult for him, because he was fully immersed in a language he did not know. It was hard for him to make friends or to learn properly. Luckily, his school was able to provide him with ESL assistance within a few months of his arrival, and after a few years, Javier was learning to speak English perfectly. Unfortunately, school didn't become easy just like that. Javier had struggles at home as well. His family was living in poverty with little to eat, and their home wasn't in the greatest conditions. His family applied for welfare and other government-funded help, but they were just barely over the income limit, so they were offered very little help. Like most other kids at school, the distraction of hunger or sickness made it difficult for Javier to concentrate in school. Also, because he was in the public school system, their education wasn't the greatest compared to other schools in the area. Their facilities weren't the greatest, they didn't have enough material and resources for every student, and their curriculum was just barely meeting the state requirements. Although his English was really good, he still struggled to catch up to all the other kids in his class, and this is what it was like for him during most of his elementary years. His parents tried to do all they could to help him stay caught up, but because they knew very little English, there wasn't much that they could do for him. They wanted to get him into a tutoring program or get him after-school help, but his school didn't offer any of these programs. Javier felt lost and confused because his school didn't have the kinds of opportunities that would help him, and all the other programs that his counselor told him about were really expensive. In middle school, he did find that he was good at sports, and he decided to join the neighborhood soccer team. In doing this, he began to make friends that went to school with him and friends that lived around him. By doing this, he was able to discover a little bit more about himself and where he fit into everything. Once he started high school, though, he thought he would never graduate because he saw how a lot of his friends were dropping out. School was just too much for them, and they preferred to get a job instead to help out their families. Even though school was hard for him and the odds were against him, he reevaluated the reason his family moved to the U.S. to make a better life for themselves. His parents wanted him to get an education and find a career that he'd enjoy for the rest of his life. He was afraid of disappointing his parents, just the thought of it. He didn't want to end up like they did, struggling to make payments or worried about what they'd eat, and they didn't want that for him either. So he decided to work harder, stay focused on his studies, and not give up. His teachers saw good improvement over the span of 6 months, and they wanted to see more improvement continuing. His math teacher told him about an organization called Making Waves Foundation, which is a program that helps disadvantaged children with their schoolwork, helps them prepare for college and career choosing, and on top of that, they offer medical and nutritional support. Javier was thrilled to get this information, and he knew that he would be able to reach his goal to graduate with this extra support. Over the 4 years of his high school, he attended this program every day after school, and he even took summer school courses. And though it was a long and difficult journey, he never gave up, and here he is graduating from high school. Who would have thought?